Why does everybody hate Caitlin Clark? And do you hate Caitlin Clark? Come on, talk
dude.
to me.
Absolutely not. I think that she's a gem. I didn't know her, but All-Star Weekend, we kind of bantered back and forth a little bit. And she's lovely. She has a lot of pressure on her shoulders. And I think a lot of people always have a lot to say with people they don't even know or shoes they've never been in.
According to Caitlin Clark, the most discussed athlete in women's basketball, but not all of them have returned. Sophie Cunningham has so far just shut down the critics, and provided Clark with the courtesy she merits in a fresh interview, and admirers adore it.
What is it feels it's not hate, but is it jealousy? Is it envy? Is it just what is it?
Yeah, I see both sides. I'm not an extremist in any way.
Yeah.
And so I like to see both sides of each party. I think when you have older people in the league, they work their tails off and they didn't get the recognition. They don't get paid millions of dollars before they even step on the court. You know what I mean? And for them, it's all about, okay, well, what are your stats? What are you doing for the actual game? While you're playing.
Yeah.
And then for them, this is amazing for women's basketball. This is amazing for women's sports in general. You have so many people, so many new and fresh eyes on our sport that maybe they're a little uneducated and maybe they kind of stir the pot a little bit.
However, other WNBA veterans have shown little warmth, perhaps even contemptuous of Clark. Cunningham is acting in reverse. She is praising her and supporting Clark, skill, and pointing out jealousy, encouraging negativity. So why is Cunningham is currently defending Clark, and how did she reveal the true cause of some? Her triumph is too much for the players to handle. Stay tuned, Sophie, because this just got real. Cunningham has never held back, returning, and in her most recent interview, she did more than only commend Caitlin Clark. She defended her outright like never before. Previously, when some NBA players are rolling their sly jabs, eyes, or acting as though Clark's influence isn't, the actual Cunningham makes it apparent as day for which Clark is deserving of acknowledgement she's receiving. And to be honest, that's good to hear. Clark has been examined closely since every shot as soon as she walked into college. Every response and every help have been examined, discussed, and applied against her. Some claim that when she does well, she's just a volume scorer throughout her difficult times. She's overrated, according to some, and when some would prefer that she makes history, discuss what she ostensibly doesn't, perform better than admit what she does, superior to every other player in the game. At this moment,
Sophie Cunningham was traded to the Indiana Fever for Nalissa Smith and a pick. Sophie honestly has a similar game to Lexi Hall. She is a tall guard who can shoot the three. She is nasty on defense. What I love about her is she brings this kind of spark and energy to the court. She is very feisty. She is not scared to go after it. And I feel like, will also act as an enforcer on this team. But Sophie is someone also, if you guys remember back at WNBA All-Star, there was this clip that was going viral where Sophie grabbed Caitlin and was like, hey, do you want to come to Phoenix? And she has been very vocal in the media that she loves Caitlin Clark's game and she would love to play with her at some point. And so I just feel like she is going to be a great fit for this team. She is going to be able to add more space to the court.
Cunningham won't tolerate it at all, recognizes the absurdity for what it is, and she is speaking rather than being mute. She is aware that Clark is more than simply another rookie. She is the WNBA's future, and rather than ripping her down, ought to be encouraging her, but it's not what's taking place. Throughout the interview, Cunningham made it abundantly evident that there is genuine jealousy of Clark. Said it clearly, if you have something bad to say about the attention, what Clark is contributing to the game is either failing to take use of it or that's a bold statement, but jealousy. Also entirely accurate because, let's face it, there is no denying Clark's influence on the WNBA. The league is going through record-breaking sellout of viewers, crowds, and an intensity of enthusiasm that has not yet been observed, and instead of commemorating this, a few players and media figures appear to be more concerned with minimizing it rather than accepting the Clark is injecting fresh vitality to their show, as though she is not a native and hasn't earned. Cunningham isn't here for that at her apartment. She recognizes the wider picture. Everyone benefits from Clark in the. Not only does she recognize herself in the WNBA, that Clark's accomplishments go beyond. Her goal is to elevate the league as a. Overall, the greater focus indicates more. Larger contracts, more money, and more chances for each and every participant in the league, yet some people are still unable to give up their grudges. Cunningham also brought up a vital aspect. Clark is more adept at managing the pressure than most folks might only dream of. From college to the pros, she's carried the burden of a whole sport on her back, and she continues to perform here at an elite level, and she isn't giving in to the pressure, and she's flourishing in it. Showing up, putting up a lot of effort, and providing everything she possesses for the game, which is the reason Cunningham admires her. She has witnessed Clark's abilities and, rather than acting like she's just another rookie, she's giving her credit for what she truly changed the game. She didn't refrain from speaking during the interview, evident that Clark's negativity is facing is not justified. It has nothing to do with basketball, is about more than just basketball. That jealousy is something else, but it's not. Certain WNBA players' secret battled for years to introduce additional, considering the league that many of them had to struggle, strive, and work for even a small portion of the fame that Clark is getting at the moment, and that annoyance is reasonable, but what's not acceptable is transferring that annoyance to Clark, as though she is to fault for the state of affairs. Cunningham used to be aware of that. Clark's success doesn't make the difficulties go away of previous players if it makes their work even more significant. The growth that the WNBA is currently experiencing would not be feasible without those who previously arrived, but Clark is taking things further, and rather than players who are resentful about it should be thankful that the league is at last receiving the recognition it merits, is more than merely Cunningham standing up. According to Clark, it's about altering how we discuss the excellence of women's. The double standards in basketball include glaring if a man entered the game, NBA, and instantly set new marks, led the league in terms of audience size, and alter the game's image overnight. He would be hailed as the upcoming big thing. There would not be ongoing efforts to minimize his influence so that no one would know that he doesn't wait his turn, deserve the limelight, but because Clark, some folks are doing it in the WNBA, cannot bear it, rather than recognizing the fact that this is a significant moment for the league. They're holding on to attitudes that are detrimental to others. Seeing through all of that, Cunningham recognizes the wider picture and is aware of that everyone gains from Clark's success. She didn't hesitate to say that because one day she would adore playing with her, since she is aware that having a Clark-like player on your team exclusively improves you. And Cunningham's words have greater meaning now than before because she's genuinely moving to Indiana to join Clark. She's going to do more than just talk about it, personally witness it. Yet it was evident that players were not on board with Cunningham's fever is being led by Clark. Accepting it wholeheartedly is a significant change for Indiana since, let's face it, the last season, the team's chemistry was a complete wreck. From the passive-aggressive behavior of NaLyssa Smith perspective on the absence of leadership and cohesiveness, there was a clear discrepancy. Clark wasn't wanted by some players, and by their acts, they made it apparent. Smith is gone now because of the fever. Didn't simply exchange her for a basketball player. The reasons they exchanged her for her didn't align with the team's new course. They eliminated the negativity and the drama, and the opposition to change as well as in. By doing this, they give players access, such as Cunningham, who genuinely aspire to be. That is the reason this is so thrilling. Not alone is talent being added by the fever. They are incorporating the proper mindset. They're assembling a group of people who think Clark doesn't harbor a secret grudge against her. Success that they are encircling her with. Players who are motivated to succeed and who recognize that this is a new time for. The Cunningham franchise will not be an additional teammate who puts up with Clark. She will be a member of the team who champions her because she's delivering the type of tenacity and leadership that Indiana, in dire necessity, she doesn't hesitate to. She doesn't hesitate to voice her opinions, protect her comrades. Thus, even though some players continue to sit on the refusing to enjoy the moment from the sidelines, Cunningham is jumping right in. She's all in on the fever, all in on Clark, and fully committed to what this group is creating. And for enthusiasts, it's precisely the type of someone you would like to have on your team, who doesn't harbor resentment at another player's achievement but instead views it as an chance to win and advance in the game. Cunningham's remarks together weren't only about complimenting CL. They aimed to expose the harmful attitude that hinders the league. She's correct. If you're not making the most of this, you're missing out on this moment. If you're more centered on expressing anger that Clark is the league's face, you're squandering your energy. Clark is not the issue. The issue is those who are unable to let go, leave the past behind, and welcome the future.
Cunningham is more aware of that than
most, which is why she's doing well. Others are finding it difficult to adapt. An important turning point for the WNBA players. Own an option that they can either support the game's development or leave. Cunningham has made her behind it decision, and she is fully focused on the future. And if her statements are any guide, she will soon become one of Clark's most important allies as the Fever attempts to. Sophie Cunningham, the great, stepping up. To stand up for Caitlin Clark is more than simply a simple support. It represents a significant change in how the WNBA discussion is developing. We have witnessed a rift in the league where some players are adopting a rival of Clark while others appear more unwilling, passive-aggressive, or outright disdainful, which is the reason Cunningham's remarks are crucial. She's not merely praising Clark's excellence. She's pointing out the envy and pettiness and negativity that have been all around her, and let's face it, it's hearing from a seasoned athlete is refreshing. Truly tell the truth rather than dancing around Cunningham's problem. Clark's defense involved more than merely lauding her basketball abilities, but she went into further detail on the reality that Clark is dealing with a crazy amount of pressure more effectively than most individuals ever. Could Clark's expectations not be met? Normal. She's not only a well-known, she is being positioned as the rookie representative of a whole sport before even playing a single game. That's professional. Degree of focus and anticipation can break a player. We've witnessed it occur previously in both men's and women's sports. When the excitement gets too much, some sportsmen give down under the pressure of everything, but she's leaning into Clark. It accepts it and keeps demonstrating why she is deserving of all. She's receiving recognition, which is why she is respected by Cunningham. She's not just observing a talented athlete, someone managing a situation without. In the league, no one else has ever dealt with, as there is no other way to know the truth. A WNBA rookie has arrived with this caliber of. Of course, there have been amazing possibilities prior to Brianna, Sabrina Ionescu, and Stuart Diana Ri, although none of them had to deal with what Clark is. No rookie has ever played in the WNBA. Create a buzz ticket for this type of media, sales, and national dialogue prior to, and some gamers find that to be aggravating, annoying, as they had to battle for years only to receive a little portion of the acknowledgement Clark is receiving. They had to tolerate poor salary and empty arenas for seasons, and little media attention up until now. See Clark show up and bring the Cunningham WNBA to a whole other level. Understands that she even admitted that certain seasoned players feel excluded from the discussion, as they didn't receive this type of shown when they first joined the league. Although, what makes Cunningham different from some of the other opinions in the WNBA at the moment is that she keeps her frustration to herself, becoming resentful rather than being. Despite her bitterness, she is thankful that everyone's game is altering because of Clark, and that's what distinguishes her. Some players, however, are trapped in an outdated school mentality, behaving as Clark is, removing something from them. Cunningham is aware of Clark's. Every player in the game gains from success. The league's increased viewership indicates greater ticket sales, and larger contracts imply greater pay for all sponsors. Deals give the WNBA additional chances. Players everywhere, which is why it doesn't make sense to be negative about Clark, since Cunningham stated it directly. Do you have anything negative to say on what? For the league, Clark is doing what you're either not paying attention or you're simply envious. And let's face it, many instead, gamers are missing the moment of being aware that Clark is revealing doors for everyone as they're behaving. She hasn't earned it and is an outsider. They discuss her as though she's instead, it's some overhyped college star, compared to one of the most powerful, offensive, the best women's basketball players ever. However, the issue with that notion is not grounded in truth. Clark is more than just she is a once-in-a-generation talented player. She has talent and isn't merely shattering records. She's changing the possibilities she's not only bringing in women's games new admirers, she's transforming how people interact with the WNBA in its entirety. Cunningham understands that, so instead of destroying Clark, she's accepting it. Moreover, she will now truly be playing with her in Indiana. That alters everything, as we've witnessed for months. There is a split in the Fever locker room. Players don't listen to Clark's arrival, whether via the body, social media language, passive-aggressive posting, or completely disregarding her influence. A player named Nalissa Smith was not just inappropriate for the Fever she didn't fit in with the court. Additionally, she never displayed any genuine assistance for Clark. She was never the player must make an effort to develop relationship, and let's face it, her lack of play that is uneven and defensive didn't help, which is why the Fever brought her in after shipping her out. Cunningham rather, which is why this move wasn't just about basketball. Fever added more than simply a three-pointer shooter and protective presence in Cunningham. A teammate was added who genuinely has faith in what they're creating, a colleague who values Clark, a comrade who comprehends the goal of this group's progress, and that's precisely what Indiana need do to tell the truth. Clark wasn't entirely in her first season. She wasn't supported simply competing against the WNBA defenders. She was competing with teammates who weren't entirely supportive of her leadership. The squad with Cunningham that is no longer together. There is now a player who will go to fight for someone who isn't Clark, fearful of revealing the truth, bring hardness to the ground, and establish the tone for a successful culture, which is why this season will soon be unique. For first time since Clark's arrival she will have a teammate in the WNBA who embraces her position as the spokesperson for the franchise that she will have. Someone who doesn't simply put up with her success, but acknowledges that it has changed everything since the time you begin assembling a group of people who genuinely believe. You begin to win in your top player. You begin to establish a culture of trust, accountability, and chemistry, and that's what is now taking place in Indiana. The Fever isn't limited to talent stacking. They're assembling a logical team. They are encircling Clark together with players who appreciate and wish to be present. Her and those who recognize the chance in their presence, and Cunningham is leading the charge, but some WNBA players. Clark is still being side-eyed by players. Cunningham is waiting for her to fail, getting up and saying, no. she's fantastic. And everyone should understand that that's how to be a leader, and that's why things will be different this season. Clark will be able to avoid having to handle coworkers who are unwilling to see her thrive, so she won't have to manage conflict in the changing area. She won't need to battle negativity. Rather than from her own squad, she'll have Cunningham and other athletes who are prepared to triumph with her, and when you add that, a certain rapport with Clark's talent, the WNBA's other teams had better be prepared. Since the Fever isn't merely attempting to, they're still attempting to make the playoffs, to win everything, and with the appropriate players, the proper attitude, and the appropriate leadership, they might succeed. Sophie Cunningham just gave a very clear message. She's got Caitlin Clark's back message, and she doesn't hesitate to point out the jealousy of her accomplishments. While some WNBA players harbor resentment toward the influence of Clark, Cunningham perceives the larger picture. She is aware that Clark is excellent for the league and is willing to accept what is the new women's basketball era. Do you think Sophie should get up for Clark? Please leave your comments in the hit the like button in the comments, but don't forget to subscribe for more updates. See what happens when you click on the following video. You're there.